Even as President-elect Trump focuses on putting together his government, he spent part of the weekend reacting to perceived slights from Saturday Night Live and the cast of the Broadway musical Hamilton. On Friday night, the Vice President-elect Mike Pence attended a performance of the popular Broadway show. He was greeted by a few cheers and a swell of boos from the audience. Well, you can hear it there, and after the show, one of its stars read a statement to Pence, written by the show's creator, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Here's part of that.
President-elect Pence, we welcome you, and we truly thank you for joining us here at Hamilton, an American musical. We really do. We, sir, we are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us.
Well, Donald Trump responded, as you might expect, with a series of angry tweets. Quote, our wonderful future VP Mike Pence was harassed last night at the theater by the cast of Hamilton. Cameras blazing. This should not happen. The cast of Hamilton was very rude last night to a very good man. The cast and producers of Hamilton, which I hear is highly overrated, should immediately apologize to Mike Pence for their terrible behavior. Trump also answered a question about the incident over the weekend.
Inappropriate.
Well, today, the actor who read this statement, Brandon Dixon, told CBS he wouldn't apologize.
When Donald Trump tweeted that this was harassment of his vice president-elect, your response was?
I simply informed him that harassment, or rather conversation, is not harassment, you know, and I was really appreciative that Vice President-elect Pence stood there and listened to what we had to say.
The President-elect is demanding an apology.
Yeah.
I heard. We assume that no apology is forthcoming.
There's nothing to apologize for.
Well, joining me right now, the Washington Post's Robert Costa. He's an MSNBC political analyst. Steve Cortez, a Trump supporter and former advisor. Karine Jean-Pierre, senior advisor for MoveOn.org. I think we have all bases covered now. Let me talk, first of all, to Steve Cortez. Let me just tell you, put my cards on the table. I thought what the cast had to do was fine with me. You will argue about that. I thought they did it very professionally and respectfully. They made a point. It was about diversity. It was about respecting all Americans. I'm all with it. The booing was lowbrow. It was the booing of an elite audience that paid $800 to be there. They were dumping on a fellow member of the audience. It was not a sports event. It wasn't a Phillies game or an Eagles game. It was inappropriate behavior, lowbrow from beginning to end. But I'm with the cast 100%. How do you split it?
Well, Chris, I have to tell you, I don't know that we can excuse the cast either.
Well, go for it. You go for it. That's your view.
No, and listen, I think you're exactly right that, you know, 99% of Americans, by the way, could never afford to be there in the first place. And both audience and cast, I think, live in a cultural bubble of New York City, and yet talk condescendingly to the vice president, who was just elected by a country that they don't understand, frankly, very well. And they don't understand the economic angst that exists out there in America, which I think was the primary impetus behind this revolution at the ballot box. So
you don't consider that cast elite, do you? A lot of those people would have a hard time. Let me tell you about show business.
Cultural elites, Chris, it doesn't mean
being
monetarily.
Able to afford an $800 ticket is not what one of those cast members normally does. They can't afford to get in that place. They're working their butt off to make that cast and to stay with that cast.
But that doesn't mean they don't live in a cultural bubble. That doesn't mean that they're not in a cultural bubble of New York City. And I think that that is important here. And also, by the way, no matter whether you're in a bubble or elite or not, if you hold the rostrum, right? You know, could imagine going to church on Sunday, going yesterday to church, and having the preacher or the priest call you out, and you have no idea. You know, he said that was a conversation, the actor. That's not a conversation. That's one way. That's dictation. That is me calling you out, and you have no ability to effectively respond.
Well, we'll get back to that because I thought Mike Pence was a genius the way he handled it. Your thoughts?
Look, I think that free speech, it should be everywhere, right? It applies everywhere, whether it's on Twitter, to Broadway, to the streets, to the White House. And Donald Trump lecturing anyone on bullying is just a joke. And so what's happening here is that he's using this as a classic misdirection. It's a diversion to talk about the real issues happening right now with his transition campaign, and also him going to Twitter. He uses Twitter like a Jedi mind trick, right? It's like, here's a shiny object. I'm going to distract you. I'm going to manipulate the media so that we're not talking about what's happening actually, which is the conflict with his business when it comes to his administration.
Okay, your thoughts on this, Robert? You've covered this guy for a year at least now. Is Trump just using this as a shield, this culture war? To shield the fact he had to pay a lot of money in the Trump U case? Or is he just the kind of guy that thinks there's a real culture war and benefits from it? I personally believe he's canny as a fox. He wants this fight because he knows the New York elite at that theater are not America, and he can take them on. Your thoughts?
As a public figure, he's always been more comfortable coming through things as a political theater, as an actor in a sense, embracing confrontation in the fight. He's of the culture more than he is of any political ideology, and this is his natural mode.
Well, what do you make of the fact, let's start with the things, the audience booing Mike Pence. Well, nobody asked them to do it. They did it, free speech, as just been pointed out. Fair enough, they have the right to do it. There's no doubt about that. The cast members knew what they were doing, and they're professional. Lin-Manuel actually wrote the script for that admonition. I think you'd call it admonition. Trump didn't come up with all that. So his only opportunity to play this card was how to react. Tell me how it fits into his mode of reaction. Was it a cover-up of his Trump U giveaway where he had to pay the money? He lost that case. He had to pay. Or is it something else?
Trump's sitting there in Trump Tower tonight, and he's got Steve Bannon at his side, son-in-law Jared Kushner, but it's the Bannon relationships that keep. You look at Breitbart and how they engage with political theater and how they go after their opponents. This is something that Trump is not walking away from. He wants to be fully immersed, not just on the policy, but in the culture, not in the traditional Pat Buchanan culture sense. This is someone who wants to change and use the divisiveness within the culture to his political advantage.
Well, the Vice President-elect, Mr. Pence, Mike Pence, responded very differently than his boss, if you will, to this controversy. Here's what he said yesterday on Fox.
My daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed the show. Hamilton is just an incredible production. When we arrived, we heard a few boos and we heard some cheers, and I nudged my kids and reminded them that's what freedom sounds like. And but at the end, I did hear what was said from the stage, and I can tell you, I wasn't offended by what was said. I'll leave to others whether that was the appropriate venue to say it.
Do you think, Karine, this is all a setup so he gets to be president? Do you think the whole thing here, Steve, you can jump in on this too. I just wonder where the whole thing is aimed at make, because that's what a president would say. You know what, right. I brought my daughter and I brought my cousins, her cousins, and, it was a cross-cultural thing for a conservative from the Middle West. There's a largely minority cast, very diverse. No, I want to get Karine in here, because he did walk in, not enemy territory, but different territory for him. Right. He was trying to reach out culturally to see something he'd heard about. It wasn't, it wasn't conservative culture. It was new culture. I agree. It was new culture. And look, I think to say that the staff or the performers of Hamilton are elitist, you have to get to know who they are and read their bio, and you wouldn't. That's not what you would get from that. But I think, Chris, the thing is, if you look at what happened last week, we learned there was so much conflict of interest. There was the meeting that Ivanka Trump sat in with the Japanese Prime Minister, while they are doing, Trump does business in Japan. There was, we learned that during the campaign, and while he was hammering at Hillary Clinton about her foundation in Saudi Arabia, he was actually doing business in Saudi Arabia too. So there was so much that happened in just 1 week. Imagine what the 4 years of a Trump administration. It's what he accused the Klings of doing. Exactly. That's exactly right. Saturday Night Live. I'm sorry, Steve, you wanted to say something. Then we'll go to Saturday Night Live, because it was fascinating.
Well, I want to say this. I think there is a double standard that Americans see, and it would be this, I believe, and it's a hypothetical, but if this same scene had unfolded in 2008 with then President-elect Obama, do you believe, in all honesty, that this cast, would they have lectured him? At the time, he was vehemently against same-sex marriage. Would they have lectured him in the same manner that they lectured Mr. Pence? I don't believe so, and I think that's evidence of the double standard. I think it's part of why, by the way, we won this election.
Okay, let's look at this. Saturday Night Live, which no one would accuse of being conservative, also got under Donald Trump's skin this weekend. Here was part of their opening sketch with Alec Baldwin as Trump.
We've been stuck fighting ISIS in Jabhat al-Nusra for 6 years now. So when we found out that you had a secret plan, it really energized us.
That's right. A plan. Very secret.
Well, whatever it is, we're really looking forward to hearing it come January. It's only 7 weeks away, so let's save some lives together, sir.
Tremendous. Love it. Thank you. Okay, right. Here we go. Here we go. Big plan. Big plan. Google, what is ISIS?
Well, Trump tweeted yesterday, I watched parts of Saturday Night Live last night. It is a totally one-sided, biased show. Nothing funny at all. Equal time for us. Well, it is funny. I'll give him that. Let me go back to Steve on this. Actually, I want to go to Costa. Robert, my friend, is this the beginning? I'm going to do this at the end of the show. I get the feeling we're all in the middle of a reality show. That all these candidates trooping forward, all doing their jumps and their elephant handstands, whatever he's asked them to do, including Mitt Romney. They're all pretending they like him. They all are dying to get jobs. He could do this right through Christmas. This is a hell of a show. He'll bring every Republican wannabe in the country in to see him, to get to beg for a job.
We're seeing a show. But let's look at what's really happening politically. You have a president-elect who hasn't had a news conference. He brings in all the network executives today, is dismissive of the press coverage of the campaign. He's sitting there making all these cabinet picks. He's having a highly orchestrated video come out about his first 100 days. And at the same time, he's got all this cultural distraction. SNL, fighting with Hamilton. Trump, this is how Trump operates. Distract, make it about the culture, but at the same time, he's not talking to the press, and he's making all these conservative policy plans.
Yeah, I think he knows what he's doing. I think his part of the country may be a little bit bigger than the Saturday Night Live audience. We'll see. But he is duking it out with these people. And by the way, it's always, you talking to me? You talking to me? He wants to fight. Thank you, Robert Costa, Steve Cortez, and Karine Jean-Pierre. Up